Hey everyone, I'm Keisha Charmaine and I'm back with a new video. And in this video, I'll be giving some commentary. And I really kind of just want to open the floor for some conversation in the comments after watching this video called Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, Racism, Colorism, and the Uncomfortable Truth. So, if you're not familiar with what's going on, you may be confused as to why a show like Love and Hip Hop is covering such topics like racism and colorism. But long story short, one of the castmates who is non-black, she used a racial slur towards a black castmate. She called them a monkey. And, you know, that word, there's a lot of history with that word in the United States. If you haven't been living under a rock, you're well aware that that is a racial slur. And it was used to dehumanize black people, to justify the treatment of black people. Because if you see black people as less than human, then you'll feel better about yourself when you treat them terribly. So that's where that came from. But you know what? Let me not say if you're living under a rock, because maybe there are people who aren't aware of that. I think that that's fewer and further in between, but perhaps there are people who are not aware that monkey is a racial slur. But I'm pretty sure that the castmate who used that word is very well aware and used it, weaponized it intentionally. That's my opinion on that, but we're not going to be talking about that so much. This is a hair channel, guys. I noticed that they had a conversation about hair, and I kind of wanted to go deeper into it because I feel like they scratched the surface, but they didn't go deep enough. But of course they didn't, because it's not about hair. So you may be wondering, why am I making this video? This is a little different from my channel. I used to love and hip hop back in the day. I used to be really into reality TV. It was my guilty pleasure. And that goes for all of those VH1 shows, Love and Hip Hop, Black Ink Crew. Man, look, if a reality TV show took place in New York, oh, I was in there. I loved it. But not even just the New York ones, because I used to watch Bad Girls Club. Bad Girls Club was like one of the first shows I had to stop watching, because literally I could feel my energy shift after I watched that show. It was really negative. That show was really negative, especially at the point when I stopped, because at first it was one type of show, but then eventually the people that would come on the show, they were coming on there to bully people, and it was just like, okay, I'm not gonna watch this. But yeah, anyway, I ended up just like not even intentionally not watching reality shows anymore. I just stopped watching them. But I was watching them for almost a decade. So as far as Love and Hip Hop goes, I still know a lot of these castmates, because they were on there back when I used to watch it. And even the ones that I'm not so familiar with, I'm still a little familiar with, because I still like keep my ears to the streets, so I know what's going on. Obviously I know who Spice is. Well, maybe it's not obvious, but I listened to Spice long before she ever been on Love and Hip Hop. Yeah, so let's get into it. So you know what, I think I already gave my 2 cents on how I feel about monkey. As far as colorism goes, yes, colorism is a thing. People like to say that colorism doesn't exist because light-skinned people get bullied as well. But being bullied is different than institutionalized programming that's at your disadvantage. And I understand the train of thought, but you have to understand how privilege works. Like, for instance, maybe I get made fun of because I'm really skinny, but it's not the same as when you make fun of a fat person, because fat people are discriminated against systemically. So we're talking about oppression versus bullying. So maybe you were made fun of for being considered high yellow, and I'm not trying to downplay that experience, but that's not colorism. Historically speaking, colorism is like when the light-skinned slaves worked in the house versus the dark-skinned slaves working in the field. Although you could argue that they're both really bad positions to be in, because for instance, when you worked outside in the field, you only worked for a certain amount of time, because when the sun set, you couldn't even see. So your work day was pretty much over. However, if you worked in the house, you on the around the clock, like, and you had certain duties that that required you to get R-worded. You know what I mean? I'm sure that existed with the dark-skinned slaves outside as well, but it was more of a regular thing when it came to the house slave. So that's another conversation. But I also want to give you an example. That's an example from history. I'm going to give you a more recent example. A more modern example of colorism could be a lighter skinned person getting an opportunity over a darker skinned person who was more qualified. With foundation, when you go to, unless you're talking about Fenty, you know, a lot of those companies don't cater to dark skinned people. You'll have 20 shades of beige and then 3 shades of chocolate. Anyway, I'm gonna get into this video, and now we're gonna start talking about hair. So I guess texturism is a thing, and it's more than just that though. But Young Jock, he rose a question that I thought was really important. So that's what we're gonna get into now. I'm gonna play it for you guys.
I got a question. So what is it called when black women walk around with this straight hair or these, you know?
Because I can change
it's
the way.
fashion.
Yeah,
it's an add-on like y'all tattoos.
So I'll tell you why I think it's
different. Not appropriation.
It depends on how the person is using it. Some black women do not love themselves the way they are, and I can take for example, not every black woman would proudly wear their natural hair like this beautiful woman sitting right here, because they have a lot of self-hate. They don't love themselves enough to wear their natural hair, so they feel like the add-ons and the thing makes them look better or whatever the case
because
may
society
be.
showed them that the kinky hair ain't pretty.
I see her take her wig off and go around with her natural hair. I take my wig off all the time. I'm just always performing. I like mine's blue, so that's the persona that I created as Spice. But I love myself in my natural form.
Spice, do you feel like that's a self-hate or with the society made them feel? There are women who feel that way.
Society will make you feel that way, because in Jamaica, for example, where I come from, or everywhere, people bleach their skin and alter their appearance.
But so that's the answer to Jock's question, though.
Yes.
And why, you know, when black women wear their hair straight, it's different than when people who are not black wear our hairstyles and act like they invented it, right? Because they're doing it because, oh, it's trendy, oh, it's cute, I can be popular, I can come up, right? Black women have done it historically because it was the only way to get hired, because people would not treat us fairly because of the discrimination. So the Crown Act, so they actually had to pass policies so that black women and all black people, to be honest, don't face hair discrimination at work. Don't get fired or get suspended from school or told they can't walk across the stage or participate in a wrestling match because they have locks or because they have natural hair, right?
You didn't buy those lips to look like Sarah. You bought her to look like Keisha.
Yeah, like I didn't buy these lips. I didn't buy these lips to look like Sarah. I bought these lips to look like goddamn Spice and
that part. But we have this confusion in black community that black women are trying to be European. But I'm sitting here saying, look at Queen Neffy, look at it, the jewelry, the hair clips. She was on the same tip.
No, but black women are the ones with the lips. Let's be very clear.
Like Spice has also said, is that there are black people who don't like the way they look.
Yes, they are.
Definitely black people who think the European
and the
look
system
is better.
creates that place for them to feel inferior as well.
So also, because we're talking about racism, that is one of the tools of racism, is to try to make us hate ourselves. So when we talk about when we talk about internalized hatred for ourselves, they purposely implanted those ideas in us because they knew that they could dominate us. If we are fighting amongst ourselves, if we are hating ourselves, it's easier to marginalize us.
Okay. It was a lot of stuff that I caught this time that I didn't catch the first time. So, okay. Where should I start? I thought that it was a genuine question from Young Jock, and it was a legitimate question, and I think that he asked it because he really wanted to know their perspective. And I think that they started to answer it kind of wonky, but they got to it. To me they got to it. It is true indeed that originally black women started wearing Eurocentric hairstyles to assimilate, to be able to work where those styles were required. In America, you know, they did the most for us to not express our natural beauty because it was seen as a threat. So, you know, check out my YouTube video on the what's it called, Self-Made, the Madam T.J. Walker movie on Netflix. So originally that was why it was done, but I like how Jag was like, but is that really still affecting us today? Is that how it is still today? Like, are we still wearing these hairstyles to assimilate today? And then they brought up the Crown Act, which is an act that has newly been implemented throughout the different states in the United States. And the Crown Act is to prevent workplace discrimination and discrimination in other areas based on our hair. However, my issue with that is just that, like, they may not be able to legally discriminate against your hair, but if they don't want you, they don't want you, and they're gonna come up with another excuse to get rid of you, in my opinion. But at least if they do try you with your hair, you can have some legal defense there, since that's illegal now. But one thing that I thought was important to address is, while yes, of course I agree that women of all different races, you know, go through different beauty treatments to look more black, or to look more aligned with black, to look black adjacent, you know what I mean? So yes, it's true that they get they get our lips, they, you know, try to get our figures, they even like jock our trends. But I do believe that the argument could be had that black women also do that when it comes to their hairstyles that they choose. Because while yes, of course, you can switch up your hair, switch it up to express yourself, like they said, fashion, you know, you switch it up to for variety. I get that. But why don't you switch it up with styles that are more closely like your natural hair? And I'm not saying that you should only wear Afro wigs. That's not what I'm saying. But when you are switching up your styles, why aren't you going the kinky route more often? Like, I really like when Megan wears her curly natural hair, when she wears her own hair, but also when she wears the pieces. And she does, recently I've seen her do it with like a blondish reddish color. Like, it's really pretty. She's been doing that more lately. She didn't really do that early on, but she's been doing it more lately, and I appreciate that. SZA is a singer who was very well known for her textured weave. She used to lie and say it was hers for a long time. But like, that was her aesthetic, and to this day she still wears textured weave, just not as much, and usually not as full and dramatic as she did back in the day, but she still does wear textured weaves, and I appreciate seeing that. So that's just a couple examples. And again, like, I do feel like it's a woman's right to be able to switch up her hair as much as she wants to, and wear it however she wants. But I do think that it's a genuine question and concern as to how come they opt to, and I'm only saying they because I don't do it. I'm obviously a black woman too, but I'm saying they because I wear my locks. But why don't black women who switch up their hair in wigs and weaves, why don't they do more kinky, curly, coily hairstyles? You don't see it as much, and I think that needs to be explored. That needs to be explored. Especially if you're in a situation where you're not facing hair discrimination in the workplace, or where else you could possibly face hair discrimination, different opportunities and things, you know. Food for thought. Food for thought. If you have any feedback, leave a comment below. Let's talk about it. Shout out to Love and Hip Hop for having this conversation. I thought it was very interesting. I do appreciate that they got an expert on there to facilitate the conversation, because if they didn't, I mean, honestly, Yandy was doing a really good job. I thought Yandy held it down. But if they didn't, I feel like if they didn't have, let me stop right there. I appreciate that they had the expert on there to help facilitate the conversation, you know, to steer it and direct it and all that, because, you know, that was necessary. Be sure to check out KeishaCharmaine.com for your lock accessories and hair growth products. Check them out, check them out, check them out. Actually, right now we have a buy 2 get 1 free sale for our satin lined hats and satin pillowcases. We all need that, especially with the fall rolling around. It's starting to get a little cooler. I have to pull out the long sleeves. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Love, light, and locks.